afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Outer Realm, the spin-off show of our sister show, The Outer Realm, which airs on Wednesday and Thursday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We are still broadcasting live here in the United Public Radio Network UFO Paranormal Radio Network 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. Today, been looking forward to this because not only do I get to hang out with a very dear friend of mine for the next little while, he's also a fellow host here at the United Public Radio, and he's the host of Becoming Quantum Conscious, which is Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And today we're actually going to be talking about, well, he's in the south of France. So, for him, it's later. So for those watching from that area, welcome and thank you. But we thought we would talk about his search, I guess many people's search, of the Christos and the Goddess Consciousness. He also hosts the tours, Sacred Sites of Mary Magdalene, which is in France. And it's very popular. It's grown quite a bit. In fact, that's how I found him. Because I'm like, next time I'm in France, I have to go check this out. And we just became very good friends. And he's been on the Outer Realm before. But when you guys know him or see him or meet him, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So without further ado, my dear friend, Bart Sharp, how are you?
Hey, it's good to see you, Michelle. It's always a pleasure. Incidentally,
Thank you.
Michelle, we started our friendship with Mary Magdalene in France, and
We
and
did.
so
We
so
did.
grateful. You said, "Hey, you ought to be on my show," and I said, "Sure." And it's like
I know.
it's kind of began just in this
It did.
wonderful relationship.
Because I saw the Facebook page and I went, what are these shenanigans and why am I not a part of it? I'm like, how do I not know about all this? I had just been in France. I'm like, wait, what? So,
Yeah.
chances are we might have been in France at the same time. I still managed to miss it.
Yes, and
So,
yeah. Just to give a plug for that, what we're talking about is
yeah, let's
I,
do
I
that.
I'm obsessed with Facebook. That's my favorite social media. So I started a group, and this is a mouthful:
Yes.
Sacred Sites of Mary Magdalene and France Tours. I can never figure out what I need to leave out of that title: Sacred Sites of Mary Magdalene and Southern France Tours.
Yeah.
However, uh, a community of Magdalites and France lovers and metaphysical lovers all put in articles. It's not just me, and
Yeah.
it's a very interactive community.
Yes.
I'm sort of a celebrity over here, Michelle. I mean,
You're,
about once a week,
yeah.
I'm walking down at a sacred site or someplace that's cool like that, and somebody
Yes.
goes, "Are you Bart?" And I'm like, "What?" You know, but all we
Last
can say
time I
is that
checked.
it's a tight knit community.
Yeah.
We're very interactive with each other.
I love it. One thing I found about, I've traveled different parts of France, northern France, southern France. It really depends where you are, but the south of France has a whole different feel to it, I find. And it's just like taking a step back in time with very humble lifestyles and really honoring a lot of these ancient places. Like people will seek them out, even the locals, like yourself, like
Yeah,
how often
yeah.
when we talk when you're back home, and I'm just like, God, you just really need to get back there because the connections to some of these places are just, I think as you build them, they intensify. They never get old.
That's right. They're kind of endless. It really gets you in this idea that a church that's been built anywhere from, whether it be 300 years old or 2,000 years old,
Yeah.
they have a vibration and a consciousness all within themselves. And you could probably say the same thing with the Black Madonna.
Yes.
So many people pray and put that energy back into those pretty little Black Madonnas.
Hmm.
They hold a space.
Yeah.
Consciousness is a very peculiar thing.
Yes. Yes. And I find that there have been those of us who have followed all along with these sort of things. And then we have a lot of newcomers. And it's the newcomers that I really want to, I guess, reach today, like an education of what all of this is about, the
Yeah.
goddess Sophia, the goddess energy, because people don't realize how ancient goddess worship is. I mean, I've seen, just in the research you've done, look at the old goddess statues that go back 30,000 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
This isn't just like a fad. This is a real deep-seated following.
We really don't know how old goddess worship is, or
Yeah.
really, when we start to think about, well, where did this begin? We had to look at Egypt,
Hmm.
and they really do not know. I'll give a shout out to my friend and colleague, and also guest on Becoming Quantum Conscious, Hakeem Iwan, which Awyan.
Yeah.
His lineage goes back to an unidentified time where tales have been passed down from generation to generation. His great grandfather began Egyptian chematology, which is
Wow.
kind of taking those folk tales and putting them into historical fact.
Hmm.
And, and I'm asking, how old is Egypt? And he's going, well, at the most boldest projections, 80,000 years.
Hmm. Wow.
Uh, and that when the historians look at all of the patina on the inside of a sacred site, they're thinking, oh, well, that's dated, you know,
Hmm.
5, 10,000 years.
Mm.
But they're not considering what's underneath of that patina, the rocks and the structures there that
Mm.
are
Hmm.
30 to 80,000 years old,
At least, yes.
at
I mean,
least.
and I mean, how much of it gets weathered over all of this time where some of it's pretty indistinguishable. You can't really figure out what it is. I mean, heck, there are mountains that look like trees, and then all of a sudden you come in overhead and you see like a ring structure and a big hole in it, like an old petrified tree. And you're thinking, got that wrong.
What? Oops.
I know, big faux pas.
Yeah, yeah. I just I think some of the archaeologists are just
Yeah,
downright stubborn, like, no, it can't be that way. And they kind of got their
yeah,
eyes closed, and you look at some of these structures and you're looking at it from a helicopter and it has all these trees over it,
yes.
but it still looks like a pyramid. Out in Bosnia, they would not
Yeah,
have recognized the Bosnian pyramids for
it's true. It's
decades
true.
and decades. And now they're going, oh, wait, if you have water in these pyramids, they create a frequency similar to the Schumann effect and have healing potential.
Funny that though.
It's like, what?
I
That's
know.
We didn't
See,
learn that in the archaeologist textbooks.
yes, and you just pegged something with stone. Stone, it resonates. Stone has a memory. There have been people who've done experiments with stone, especially in old castles or churches. Where they've taken recordings and the stone. I mean, there's a reason. I mean, it absorbs that energy. So when you have people, for example, singing like in choirs and so on, chanting, um, it resonates. And people have captured recordings in there, which they would probably call residual. But in fact, it remains is that the stone holds so much. So you come into these
Does.
ancient sites, how much of that energy are you holding on to or picking up on?
Is that a personal question?
Sure.
Uh, the vibrations come from different places,
Yeah.
and the stones hold those, but also they hold gateways. Some people would call them a portal
Yes.
where another reality comes through, and all of that memory is held with the stone, which makes it easier for these gateways to come through, or you could call them ley lines that connect to
Hmm.
this opening, and it's all in a very
Hmm.
sophisticated configuration.
Hmm.
And that's all over France. There's one place in eastern France, close to the Swiss border, called Alais,
Mm-hmm.
that has 24 ley lines, all in 15-degree increments, like you would have them, and then we go 24 15-degree increments to make a complete circle. And
Mm-hmm.
those ley lines would go and connect to a lot of the places that are power spots today, or confirmed power spots.
Mm-hmm.
And all of it's coming out of Alais.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing in history talks about this except that Julius Caesar conquered 90,000 druids on that site, and he had 40,000 Roman soldiers, which is quite a feat to
It is. Yeah.
beat up 90,000 druids. But when you go to that place, which I have,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's like other worlds are coming into this really bitty small place
Mm-hmm.
and then being sent out in 24 different directions.
Mm-hmm. Very,
Electrifying.
to say the least. To say the least.
It is. And like, who did that?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know.
See, that's all part of the either suppressed, but most certainly hidden history. Because the ancient people, I think, I mean, they were very habitual for building over top of power spots. They instinctively knew to show you how in tune they were. For example, like right now, we have technology, we have power lines, we've got all kinds of things that I think affect our energy on many levels, to be able to connect to our abilities. Some people can do it, but it's not as easy as it was. Let's say if you live out in the south of France where you don't have as much of it, or if
Mhm.
you live on a rural community where you're not as surrounded by it, where you're able to tap in to your higher self, because it's pure energy at that point.
It is. It is. And I think we have to also keep in mind that we can create different power vortexes wherever we are.
Hmm.
And, you're in Canada. I mean, I live part of the time in Austin, Texas,
Hmm.
and we're reinventing it.
Yes.
It's great to go to France and be in this world and learn all of these things.
Yes.
Magical, love it. But
Yes.
it's also important to go back to my hometown in Austin, Texas, and connect with the consciousness of all these great creators in that city.
Hmm.
And that's dynamic, but it's extremely different. It has the electricity, the Wi-Fi, the
Hmm.
all these other components that we have to contend with.
Hmm.
In France, we just have to contend with cheese and bread.
And wine.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
French. I like my
yes, yes.
wine.
And greedy French girls. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. So people who come out on your tours, um, do you find that you have, I mean, you're going to have, people who are new to all of this, and you're going to have the ones who are already well versed. And when they go to these places, they know how to tap into these energies.
yeah.
Since we're talking a little bit about, the goddess energy, where are you taking them, and what are you teaching them or introducing to them when they come to you for these places? What kind of experience are they looking for with that?
I think you have to get in touch with your own womb space.
Yeah.
You have something alive in you, and your whole body connects to everything, but you have an essence inside of you that is where you start.
Yes.
So we were doing these meditations, activating a place called the harmonious flat spot, which
Hmm.
is the connection to your own unique energy. But then you may sit on a power spot and start to say, okay, let's focus on going down into the earth and feeling that vibration.
Hmm.
And a lot of times in power spots, you want to activate them. And what I find, and this has been the last couple of years I've been doing this, is just chanting. It seems
Mm.
like chanting on power
Vibration.
spots really activates stones and stuff to where it is.
Mm-hmm.
You can vibrate that in your body just by a meditation and doing that concentration. But something about the voice and taking your voice and visualizing it going right into the stone itself, going
Mm-hmm.
beyond, and then asking a question, because questions open consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, when you ask a question, you're asking your body and its surroundings to fulfill that question. So I would ask my body, how deep can I go to connect to the source
Mm-hmm.
of this place?
Right.
And
Yeah.
that begins the connection.
Okay. So if you're at home and you want to connect to this type of energy, what's the best protocol? Because not everybody can travel, but so many people, I think I'm seeing, a very some renewed interest,
Mm-hmm.
and some brand new interest, because I see a whole lot of goddess and goddess Sophia energy. Like a lot of people I'm noticing, because you and I will work here and there, and I habitually, after that happens, will sit and just observe, and I'm seeing this is becoming a really big thing. And it's
It
interesting
is.
because only you and I know what we do, but it's sort of like interesting because I'm like, oh,
And
this
by
is
the way,
very cool.
I'm I just realized that I'm wearing a almost a white shirt, and let's let's just make a misnomer that I don't leave my tours where everybody wears white.
Yes.
And a lot of people do go, well, that symbolizes purity,
Oh,
but no, it's more that you want to bring your intention into a pure space inside of yourself.
right.
You know,
Okay.
we were doing an exercise today where we were walking in circles and we were just feeling the negativity in our body and seeing ourselves back at 2 years old,
Hmm.
being humiliated or angry at 12 years old when somebody pushed us down at the playground.
Hmm.
And that feeling inside, when we relive it, then we just drop it into the earth. And we were walking in a circle doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So letting go and working out emotional issues, every time you do this, and more of on a somatic, energetic approach to really feel it and have something that really gets to the vibration inside of your body,
Hmm.
and then finding a tool that releases it. What that does is open a space for spirit to live inside of you.
Hmm.
If I was beginning, I might start with, in fact, I did start with this, is I would breathe, take my breath and breathe really deep and keep breathing to where it feels like it went 10 feet into the earth.
Hmm.
And then when I release it, I would see the earth come up into my body and
Hmm.
I could start to feel a vibration there.
Hmm.
And of course, you do this a bit and suddenly you're going 100 miles into the earth, or you're going to the core of the earth.
Hmm.
And you're starting to realize that, wow, my intention can go any place. I
Hmm.
am starting to create some sort of travel.
Hmm.
And pretty soon you don't need a breath to do it. You just go, okay, I wonder what the center of the earth feels like, or I
Hmm.
wonder what the spirit of Gaia
Hmm.
feels like. And
Hmm.
maybe you take your breath and you breathe and you say, go to Gaia.
So
And
basically, it's
depending,
manifestation or visualization.
yeah, it is. It really
Yeah.
is. You want to, but you're looking for a visceral sensation as a start.
Hmm.
You want to get that happening to feel it. And
Hmm.
yes, you're thinking, God, this is silly. I'm just making it up. And at some degree, you are, but this only proves the fact that your body is an infinite source and it can do just about anything.
Hmm.
You just have to figure out tools to help you apply
Hmm.
that infinite source.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, so
Yes. Yes.
you can go any place, really
Hmm.
energetically, and feel different things.
Hmm.
It's intention,
Hmm.
concentration, practice, and play.
And in doing so, you can also connect to certain, certain ethereal beings or deities or of your choice,
Mm-hmm.
basically, because I
Mm-hmm.
know Sophia is a big one for myself.
Yes.
And I know you've been talking about, the exploration of the Christos consciousness, and I mean, that seems to be a thing as well. Why don't we talk about the origins of, we'll start with Sophia, because I think people are just like, well, are there many goddesses? This is something I'm starting to see. Are there many goddesses? Who do you connect to? Who is the most ancient? Who's the, of course, and I love Gnosticism. Like, I think it's a lot stems from that, the
Yeah, yeah.
Catharsis, all of that. And of course, enter Sophia, who is very well known in the Gnostic teachings.
Well, she's the beginning. If there was, if you could say Jesus was the Son of God, well, who was God?
Mm-hmm.
Sophia. That's my opinion. Maybe I'm sure that
Well, Sophia,
rises somebody's hackles, but
yeah, because Sophia even speaks of a creator. She speaks of a creator as to where she comes in, and because she can create as well. And the creator just sort of lets her, according to text, kind of go, okay. She kind of goes in there and does this faux pas, and then it kind of backfires a little bit.
yeah,
Hence the archons. And a little bit of trouble we're in with that right now. So there's a lot of time spent in trying to rectify that when you really start looking at what she's about.
yeah.
But essentially, yeah, she's probably the first,
You
right?
begin to question and wonder, well, maybe they were just experimenting, and maybe not everything came as planned. I mean,
Yeah.
with all of that,
Yeah.
but the Christos energy, I think we all have a little bit of it in us.
Yeah.
And that was originally made because things weren't exactly in balance in the lower realms of consciousness and in the lower realms of our body in the more primitive physical forms. Hence an Archonian influence, or hence the mistakes of common human beings. And what's to balance that humans can have something that can bring a lighter form of consciousness inside of them, and that would be the Christos. But I'm beginning to really realize that there's a lot more than that. I mean, there's places that have a Christos energy. I'm questioning it. Well, the sun has a Christos consciousness. There's a lot of symbolism that Jesus was the sun, Mary Magdalene was Venus, and they held this balance. And Jesus was the Christos, much like the sun, an infinite source.
Yes.
But we have that infinite source inside of us.
I was going to say, it's sort of makes you wonder why they want to block out the sun on a spiritual level.
Yeah, yeah. Let's just become mechanical.
Oops, did I say that? Maybe. But I mean, if you're looking at it from a spiritual level and the representation, there's it is very, very fascinating, because I don't know that somebody would look at the sun and associate that energy with it. So that just comes from energy work and knowledge, being versed.
It's a fun meditation to do, is to practice a visualization that the sun comes from your backside, and you're just visualizing the sun coming into your backside and coming into your heart. And all of a sudden, well, everything's brighter, that's for sure. But it feels like a greater consciousness is easily within you. And that to me is how you become more enlightened in more the intuitive side, or the personal empowerment of it, is you want to make the space of your body larger. You want to hold something as big as the sun. And, do you have that imaginative vision to really perceive what it's like to have something that big inside of you? It stretches the imagination.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good exercise. It's because you walk away from an exercise with that
Mm-hmm.
feeling bigger and grander. And when you feel bigger and grander,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of magic opens up in your life.
Well, doing energy work, I think once you get a handle on being able to manipulate that energy in any form, you realize that you don't feel lesser. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I could never tackle an energy as big as the sun, for example, or as big as this planet, or when you say reach for the stars, I mean that's a metaphor, but it's still a matter of no energy or energy.
Yeah.
And if you can meld with other energies, you just have to be able to will it. You have to be able to have a strong enough intention, I think.
And practice and
Practice.
persistency and
Yes.
willingness to be that big. When
Yes.
we, of course, the legend is that Mary Magdalene did all of this work in southwest France.
Mhm.
But when she became older, she went to the Provence region, which is in the mid south of the country, and went and lived in Grotte Saint Baume. Now, I don't know if she lived there the whole time because I went into that cave and it's up on this top of this mountainous plateau and it's facing north, which means that the wind would whip in there like 60 miles an hour on cold days. And I know she's kind of beyond human.
Yeah.
That would be hard to hack.
Mhm.
However, there is a gateway there that maybe she made it or other beings made it. And this is the legend that she traveled to 7 levels of heaven 7 times a day for the remaining parts of her life. And at that point, she became
Mhm.
like a more of an infinite being of magnitude.
Yes.
I would like to think that maybe they just started expanding their body beyond the solar system and started traveling to other
Mhm.
planets,
Mhm.
other places. And every time that they went to these places, they absorbed that vibration. If you were communing with an Arcturian or you were communing with some higher level being,
Mhm.
you would absorb who they are.
Mhm.
Your Christos energy would match in
Mhm.
with their Christos energy, and you would come home with a real treasure
Mhm.
energetically, and they
Yes.
they would grow. Uh,
Yes. I
there's
think once you connect, it's just the journey changes because you're not really traveling it alone, so to speak.
so to speak.
Yes.
So this is a fun story. I go to this church. It's called Saint Salvaire.
Mhm.
It's a Roman building, and it's shaped like a cross.
Mm.
It's like an eight-sided cross with, when you go into the room, it has four different wings. And there's these heads on the outside that are the chariots of fire.
Mhm.
Now, the chariots of fire, for those who do not know, they're these winged beings, the bull, the man, the eagle, and the lion all have wings, and they transport beings from higher realms to this realm. And of course, people say, "Oh, that's Jesus that they're bringing in," and it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That's part of it. But those of us who've studied this more say, no, they can bring in anybody. You could be bringing in, Arcturians, or you could be bringing in
Mm.
Ezekiel,
Yeah.
the prophet. Uh, uh, Highest level of angels. It's pretty unlimited
Mhm.
and it works. So
Mhm.
here's Saint Salvaire with these chariots of fire. It's like signature. This is the only thing on this building are these heads.
Right.
So, and it looks like it's a little spaceship, so I call it a launching pad. And so I take the groups in there. I'm leading a tour right now. This is day 3 of the tour. We're having they're really good sports with it because I'm trying to get all of this stuff in, and
Yeah.
it's something that they've never felt before. Um, so we summon in all of these beings, and this would also be Sophia and Magdalene and Isis and you know Yeshua and angels and and it feels like the whole room is full of spirits. So then you start to sing, and you ask whoever. I was asking Sophia and Mary Magdalene to come through my body, through the backside, and open and come through my voice.
Mm-hmm.
And since the spirit is very alive in there, I'm singing in ways that I've never sung before. I mean, I've never done this before. This is
Mm-hmm.
like, this is the funny thing when you get into these power spots. It's best to give yourself permission to experiment
Mm-hmm.
and pop into whatever shows up.
Mm-hmm.
So here I'm singing with a magnitude like something like an opera singer.
Wow.
Yeah, not as skilled as an opera singer, but hitting
Right.
these highs that
That's
I
a good
thought,
effort. Yeah.
that's not something
Right.
I've ever done before.
Right.
I used to like clear rooms when I sang.
Yes.
I had a horrible voice. However, what spirit does when it sings through you is takes all of those stuck points and moves them out of the way. Think
Mm-hmm.
about throughout your life how many stuck points you've had in your expression, and people told you can't do that, you don't
Mm-hmm.
speak that way, you're supposed to be a good boy and you're not supposed to be angry, and so you're holding back these emotions. They get stuck in your body,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore you can't express.
Mm-hmm.
One way would be singing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's great therapy to allow spirit to move through you to move this stuff out.
Right. Right.
Just one fun little story. Every day's a journey.
Yes. Well, I mean, trial and error. I mean, everybody's energy is different, so it will react
Yeah.
differently. Some people are naturally born to be able to just work with energy, so it's very, very simplified. There is some people don't have to go through processes, others do, but the process is part of the learning, right?
That's right. I confess I've made every mistake in the book.
Yeah.
I have messed up so many ways, and so many things I tried and it really seemed cool. And then
Mm.
the next day it's like, that was really kind of dumb, you
Yeah.
know. Uh,
Yeah. Well, I
but
mean,
you never learn until you jump out
mhm.
there.
I know I find sometimes, I don't do steps with the same result, but there will be times where I'm like, no, I want to do the steps because I want to know what each step feels like. I
Hmm.
want to, like, it's an education thing. So I guess where I'm going with it is no matter, what your abilities are, just break it down and take those steps, and
Yeah.
it will help. I think they'll just help you evolve easier.
You got to get out of your head and feel what's going inside internally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, your head is what's in your mind guides you,
Mm-hmm.
but the real gifts come from your heart and your second chakra, or your sexual energy, or
Mm-hmm.
your gut. All of those places, they hold the juicy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
and the brain just kind of facilitates this.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean we don't have power spots in our brain and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
if you want to get more conscious and get into Goddess energy, it's not so much an intellectual process,
Mm-hmm.
and you really have to surrender. So
Mm-hmm.
so exercise we did yesterday is we went to a spring, the Chair of Isis, which has this spring
Mm-hmm.
right beside it, and so you would anoint yourself and you would just open up as much love that you can feel. Like, what does it feel like to have your biggest love that you can imagine? Whatever that is. It could be that when you loved your lover, or you looked in your mom's eyes, or you looked in your baby's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That might get you started,
Yeah.
but you want to get it, like, you got to get that feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
then you take some of the water, put it in the water, and then you anoint somebody else, giving them that love that you've been concentrating on.
Mm-hmm.
And then, to make it even more fun, the person receiving has to be fully present with you to really pay attention to that love that that person's given you.
Mm-hmm. So they have
Which
to
is,
connect to that
yeah,
energy.
yeah. And these are people that,
Mm-hmm.
may not like each other. In
Oh
fact,
boy.
well, there was this
Yeah.
person in the group that has irritated me. So,
Mm,
that was the first person I called up and go, come on,
right.
because yeah, I knew this was my issue. And so, you can give it to anybody.
Yeah.
It's one thing to give it to somebody you really like, but
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just fighting with my necklace and my headset. It's like, come on.
come on.
Speaking of love and light. Yeah.
Yeah, you need an anointment. Yeah.
I know.
Uh,
Throw that energy around. Love and light.
yeah.
Yeah.
But this
Yeah.
helps you get in touch with your heart and
Yes.
to how to, think of your heart as a being of light,
Mm-hmm.
and it comes out of you.
Mm-hmm.
That was just one practice. Uh,
Yes.
but
Yes.
give people that all the time. I mean, if you're on the bus and somebody looks like they're tired,
Mm-hmm.
open your heart up and visualize light coming to that person,
Mm-hmm.
and you give them light. And what you
Mm-hmm.
find is you won't get tired, you'll get energized.
Mm-hmm. So is it a
Because,
good idea to ground your energy first? To
no,
keep it focused? Because I find with grounding, it helps to focus my energy more. So it's not as scattered.
that's a good thing to do. And if you make your energy bigger and bigger and bigger, you'll be more grounded.
Mm-hmm.
So I, if I don't feel grounded,
Mm-hmm.
I start visualizing energy from the earth or
Mm-hmm.
from some source, maybe the sun,
Mm-hmm.
coming into my body, and I'm just getting bigger and bigger and bigger,
Mm-hmm.
and I get more focus.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But you're doing the same thing. You might be going into a tree root and visualizing your body getting rooted into the ground
Mm-hmm.
and feeling that connection with the earth,
Mm-hmm.
and suddenly you feel more present. Well, what did you do but make yourself bigger?
I'm a Taurus, so I love the earth. I do. I have a very strong planetary connection, which I love,
Yeah.
but it is fun to sort of venture out. But I feel some of my better energy work is very I guess I say grounded because it's planetary. I think we just like being a steward of the planet. You just want to care for everything on it as well.
It sure sets up that attitude to do it that way.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think
Uh,
that's the beauty of it.
a quick question. Um, Kathy's asking, is there a good book to explore to research Sophia?
Ooh.
Because I mean, you've done a lot down there, and I do agree with Teresa because I've had a guest on who's talked about the Nag Hammadi Library, the Gnostic texts. I mean, that's a good place to start. But there are some things out there that are specifically geared
Yeah.
to the goddess Sophia, and I know you read a lot.
I a couple of new authors. I'll mention Alethea's Pista Sophia or Anaya Sophia.
Mm-hmm.
She has some good books on that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Another woman, Haley Allison Ramsey, has written a really good book on the goddess.
Mm-hmm.
I thought her stuff was really, really interesting with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I can't really think about too many that specifically address Sophia because, when you start to think about Sophia, it's kind of Old Testament stuff.
Yeah.
And who is bringing that Old Testament stuff into the newer constructs?
Mm-hmm.
I think Anaya Sophia does that real well. She
Mm-hmm.
changed her name, but I think uh, Anaya is the word she used, and that be Aniya, Anaya.
Mm-hmm.
Her books are really good
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yes.
with that. Um,
I think it's safe to say that if you do get into the Gnostics texts, that you will get a lot more information on Sophia. The Non-Commodity Library, absolutely. I mean, there's so much there as well.
Yeah.
But
Well,
anything specified, I'm sure. Yeah, you guys would just
yeah,
be
yeah.
big.
Well, you're more of a college professor level, you know,
Yes.
uh, with your knowledge. You always amaze me with that. And
Thank you.
I, I think of myself more as a artistic with knowledge. In other words, I take bits and pieces and put concepts together to
Hmm.
take them to another concept.
Hmm.
That's probably what I do well.
Hmm. Well, you do
So,
lots of things well.
well,
You're humble. You're humble.
I apply stuff well. I think
Yes.
that's my strength
Yes.
with that.
Yes.
I can't quote you with any of this.
Yes.
The way uh, Richard Stanley met my tour
I know.
group for lunch,
Yes.
and he proceeded to give the tour group a 1 hour history on the Cathars,
It's
and giving
beautiful.
all the dates, all
Yeah.
the sequences. And I'm going, oh my God, how can somebody remember all of those facts and figures?
That is
But,
brilliant.
when you think about Richard Stanley, or um,
Yes. Yes.
he's that type of guy. I'm
Yeah.
thinking, I'm thinking of Hamilton White too.
Hmm.
These guys are, they're just amazing with that.
Yes. Yes. I mean, Richard's, I mean, he's lived there for 10 years. He's an author himself. For anybody want to check him out, he's done a few segments of The Outer Realm. So has Hamilton. I think they even wrote a book together, on the trail of the Grail sort of thing. But I think that's the thing, is when you're in the area, you are within the space of these energies, and you're taking it in every single day. You
Yeah,
start to
yeah,
to really become it, and I always say it's a different world. No matter where I traveled in the world, because I've traveled many really interesting places, and I always say I leave a part of myself behind, and I bring a part of that location with me. Because I work with energies, I think it's easy for me to always remember how an energy feels, even long
it
after I've
does.
been, right?
It does, and this area has its trademark,
Hmm.
particularly because it's so old and ancient. And what makes it different than the United States, my home, is that's more of a raw energy.
Hmm.
It doesn't seem to have the ley lines that are specifically guided to places for specific purposes.
Hmm.
That's the difference. I mean, there's plenty of power in the United States.
Hmm.
I mean, I used to pull energy from the center of the earth and bring it into my body
Hmm.
and then bring it into my heart, and it feels like you're gushing energy, and then you send it out to the entire city of Austin and kind of meticulously send it into every neighborhood you can think of in the homes. And this is kind of the exercises I would do to develop my energetic abilities, really not knowing what I was doing, but it felt like the right thing to do.
But I think it
uh,
becomes instinctive. That's
yeah,
what I was saying earlier. Like sometimes when you work certain energies for for so long, it becomes instinct. You don't have to necessarily go through those steps. You just can think about, for me, I think about what I want to do. And then, it's
yeah,
just done. But the steps
yeah,
are, I guess the steps are just a way of making sure that you haven't forgotten anything.
yeah, yeah,
The layers are very important.
yeah.
And when we work together, that's where, you say, okay, we're going to do this. Okay, well, I can just go in and do that, but I pay attention to your layers, and I'll pay attention to what you're doing. So I'm just like, okay, yes. So now I see this unfolding. So I'm going to come in. I'm going to do this to complement that. So I pay attention to what you're doing. I'm just not like, renegade cowboy going, get out of my way, Bart, here I come. you know, it's just like, you know, we
So,
complement each other.
so in case anybody's wondering what we're talking about, uh, we do energy work together, and we work on various places in the world. and we kind of are kind of the good guys trying to make something happen in the world.
Yeah.
And this is happening, from people all over the place.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Now, one of my favorite people, she's going to be on the show June 25th, Angelique Pijney.
Yes.
She's this petite little French woman that looks like she could knock a mountain over.
Yeah, I was gonna say feels feisty. Yeah.
To say the least. And she moved to Rennes Chateau last year, bought a house, and there is Rennes Chateau is the world famous beacon for the area and maybe for France. It's one of the most powerful places, but yet it's a very touristy place. And yet most people who go there never get it why it's so powerful. However, Michelle and I know.
We know stuff. Yeah.
And Angelique is one of the, I don't want to give away too much, she's kind of like one of the matriarchs that can live within energy of the earth in her body and help it percolate and change. She has a very unique talent. She calls it cosmic midwife.
Right.
That she can take land and hold that and help it change and grow and improve.
Yes. But do you find that
it's
in
brought
working?
me to some interesting discoveries.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I didn't get you.
Finish. No, finish.
No, you go ahead. It's your turn.
Well, I was going to say, do you find when you start, we'll go back and forth. Do you find that in doing this sort of work with all of these different energies that people, how we always talk about like people of like mind just gravitate to one another, and people who are meant to do certain types of energy work will always find a way to connect and work together. Do you find that's happening? Because I know I've had people messages say, look, like, do you want to try and do this? But for me, it's like, I can help you out with this. It's like a quick bap done. It's not always habitual, like with the same individuals.
Well, you're so generous. I mean, your field of helping other people in the world always amazes me. And yes, I think there are people that I think that there's a signature mark that you really want to pay attention to is when you get around these people, do you feel bigger? Do you feel something more alive in you, more active? And then you may want to ask that question, well, why is that so? I mean, what is that about? It may not be that you're energy workers together. It might be something else. They may have something that you want to develop in yourself and they haven't, and you're trying to pull that in, or the vice versa. But then occasionally you find somebody that you really resonate with and you're doing energy work together. And I think that's it doesn't happen every day.
No, I agree.
It's one thing to get groups together and you all focus on something, because I do this in Austin with a group I do called Becoming Quantum Conscious.
I love that.
That's my signature, whether it be in Austin classes or on the radio show. But we will focus on an area and send energy there and our concentration together. But it's not exactly the same as somebody that you have an affinity with, that y'all just seem to match. So,
But you automatically, I think you find out pretty quick. For myself, if I have somebody whose energy doesn't jive with me, I know it immediately. So I can either conform to that a little bit, or I can just say, we don't really jive, but I think I know where you're going with it, and work it behind the scenes kind of thing. But I mean, you and our energies up always jive. Like we just work very well together, and I have found people that I can work very well together. I have many friends who do light work and energy work, and other people who just do all kinds of different things. But I think that's part of it. It's just you learn from one another,
Yeah.
and that's the key is leave your ego behind. As I said with my tuning fork, leave your ego behind. I'm always fidgeting. you know, there's no place for it. I think your energy has to be very, very pure intention.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in relationships, when you start to feel something expand, it's one of the joys of having relationships,
Hmm. Hmm.
period. I have an old girlfriend that's a very good friend, and
Hmm.
she's not very interested in metaphysical stuff. She
Hmm.
likes it that I do it,
Yes.
but there's a joy and something else happening with us that makes the friendship really rich,
Hmm.
and we're both energized from it, although
Yes.
we hardly ever meditate together.
Yeah, it's funny. It's
Go
funny.
figure.
Well, energies jive in different ways, where you can be strong in one place, you're not necessarily
Yeah.
strong in another. Like I love to meditate, but I find sometimes my mind doesn't let me settle enough to do it. But then there are other times I'm just like, I could close my eyes and I'm just there already. And so I'm just like, again, miss out like the steps. But if I did the steps, I'd probably fall asleep.
Mm.
So I just like just go where I need to go and do what I need to
So I
do.
got a question for you.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Since we're doing the goddess show, we might as well
Yes.
take goddess. What goddess or goddesses, or even gods, male side, do you have a particular affinity to, and has it changed over time?
Hmm. It's I don't know that I think a lot of things change with me because I'm always educating myself. When you start looking
Mm.
at the different connections of goddesses, like Isis and Mary Magdalene, and you see who, like the connections from every culture, but in the end, they talk about it sounds like one individual as far as the energy goes. You start to realize, wait, I can love them all because they're almost practically the same. You realize, so again, it's like just speeding through it. But
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
to say that I do lean on Sophia quite a bit.
Mm.
I like that the strength, the feminine strength that comes from it, and it doesn't belittle or I'm not trying to diminish anybody else's beliefs. It's not the point of what I'm trying to do. She's still very, very significant in Christianity, right?
Hmm.
So I think it's important for those who follow, Christianity. But I love how she's transcended through Gnosticism, Kabbalah, the Bible. Even the Bible portrays her as a personification of wisdom, a guiding force in the world, right? But she manifests in different ways, and I think she's even known as um, well, I mean, I don't want to get into the deep history, but I mean, she's still known as like Mary Saint Sophia. So I mean, there's something there that transcends all of the different belief systems. So I think we're covered. But that to me is
Mm.
what's changed is the constant need to want to grow with it,
Yeah.
not just say, well, this is who she is, but encompass all that she is.
Mm.
I got that whimsical look about you there. So,
That's
yeah.
beautiful, though. That's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, everybody has their reasons,
Mm.
for loving and having affinity different goddesses.
Hmm.
I always think of Mary Magdalene and having this very powerful womb space, and she's like very strong between the hips,
Yep.
and she had different lovers. She was very practical in this life.
Mm.
She might have had the best lover on the block with Yeshua, who knows,
Yeah.
who transcended so much energy into her body. So I admire that womb space that she had that could hold so much energy and vibration and then take it into love.
I feel that
Uh,
energy big
yeah.
time with her,
And
obviously. Yeah.
yeah, and let's just say that I'm not
Yeah.
having any desires to not become a man. I love being a man, but
Yeah.
I admire that energy uh, just as much as I admire Yeshua, because Mary held it and it emanated and vibrated out of her
Mm-hmm.
to change everything, and she took it into action.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Yeshua, I think, more projected it,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that's a difference between men and women. Men project it out, and
Balance.
and they hold that, and men need to project it out. This is my
Mm-hmm.
rant and rave with men throughout the world,
Yeah.
is that you're meant to project out good things to the world,
Mm-hmm.
plant trees that you'll never sit under,
Mm-hmm.
but go out and do these things to build and grow, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what we do. We're always thinking we're supposed to receive, but it's not. No, you're supposed to give, and everything will come to you.
I agree, and there needs to be balance. I look at goddess energy as nurturing energy, but also the strength to lead as well. Obviously, I've got a very close connection to Mary Magdalene. Very close. That has never changed. That will never change. Because it's just a connection that's there.
Hmm.
Um, but I love. But if you ask some people who are looking at goddess energy, they may not lump her into that. They will look at Sophia
Yeah,
as being that
yeah,
that true, you're the true goddess. You come from, like you're right there. You've created. So I think it gets kind of funky when people. This is what the show is important, because it's trying to make people realize that it's the energy that is encompassed and brought forward, that you can accept and meld with this energy no matter who, because it's what you do with it. Mary was a leader. She did educate. She did know how to work this incredible energy. I mean, you feel it everywhere. Certain areas that you go to, you can't not feel it, right? Where she
yeah,
practiced, where she
yeah,
spent time. It's there. It resonates. There's no going into certain caves or certain areas and come out and going, I didn't feel a thing. Like you just, so I don't think it's possible. But who am I? I mean, I know people say, oh, I'm as thick as a stump. I wouldn't know. Okay.
yeah. I felt some warmness in my fingers, I think, or
Yeah.
something.
It's just like, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's just there's that aspect of it as well.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's about a journey. Our journey is about evolution. We evolve, and that comes
we
through
do.
knowledge, experience, and connecting to energies and other sources that we've either didn't know we could connect to, or that we've been conditioned not to.
Yeah, yeah. We really definitely have an affinity with our own value of how we see ourselves and what type of god or goddesses we have an affinity to.
Mm,
I look at my life. I grew up in my teenage years going to a Protestant church. I'm not going to label any church, but
mhm,
it was very condemning. And it's kind of like, well, you're going to go to hell unless you're lucky enough to redeem yourself.
mhm.
It was really uplifting message.
That's
And
scary,
yeah, and
especially
why
when
did
you're a
I?
kid. Yeah,
Yeah. Why
yeah.
did I have an affinity to that? It was probably because my father had that same type of attitude. He wasn't a church-going man. He was a heathen who
Hmm.
was extremely abused, and he
Hmm.
was always looking at the most pessimistic way. So I heard the words from the preacher that resonated with the message I lived with,
Right.
and I stayed with that and was kind of like, well, God doesn't sound that fun, so I think I'm gonna
I know.
not even going there.
Right.
But eventually I came to it because I
Yeah.
think it's something
Mm.
I have an affinity to.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes,
It's
but
something you can't explain.
it's growth. No, I mean, it's just part of your growth. I mean, there are connections to everything. There were back. You look at the Old Testament. There were gods, Gnosticism, gods for everything. Gods, goddesses. Everybody had their realm at which people would worship. But there's one thing that's out there. I mean, you do temples to the gods they were out there, but there seem to have been a lot more temples to goddesses.
They were.
So
And
that
even,
the church would build over top of. So why do
yeah,
you think that is? Like,
well, you wanted to stamp out the pagan energies you were taking over. It's really funny. In a lot of the French towns in this area, particularly on a high part of the town, they will have a shrine to Mother Mary.
yes,
But everybody tells you, well, that used to be a shrine to Isis.
yeah,
And Isis's presence is very strong here.
yes,
Um, even Paris, when you look at the original name, that was Pour Isis,
yes,
meaning for Isis.
yes,
Uh, she has a shrine in the Notre Dame in Paris. And I don't know
yes.
if they put that back in or that got wiped out with the fire. I don't know,
Well,
but it used
it
to be
was,
there.
it's still hollowed ground for that sort of thing. It's still
Yeah,
what's underneath, like,
yeah.
but I think, why do you think there were so many goddess power spots and shrines and temples?
Because need the earth. You needed fertility. You needed to grow. The number
Yes,
one priority in those days was to have children.
yes.
Everybody needed to populate.
Mm-hmm.
That was a necessity
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people died.
Yeah.
And so you needed to keep putting them out until you got something right and you built a population.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I
Yes.
find it interesting before 2000, before the time of Christ, when you look at the goddesses of Athena and various other ones are all warring goddesses.
Mm-hmm.
Power was holding a spear and a bow, even if you're a woman. Uh, so Artemis is a good example. You
Mm-hmm.
know, she they gave blood sacrifices to Artemis for her to come in
Mm-hmm.
and be present with the people. Uh,
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
kind of gruesome, but it
Mm-hmm.
was that warring type of thing. That's the neat thing about when Jesus and Buddha and all of these gods came in that era. The, 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 the two concepts that really made them stand out, in my opinion, was you work from your heart. Men and women were equal.
Mm-hmm.
Those that wasn't played up with the Jews or the Greeks or any of those civilizations.
The
You know,
ancient civilizations, no. I mean, you don't know of many. I mean, you look at Ramses the Great, for example. Nefertari ruled like as his equal. I mean, he built her temples. I mean, you didn't see it in a lot of the ancient cultures. That was one that just comes to mind. I think Akhenaten and Nefertiti was the same idea. Like they were there, but I mean, it wasn't commonplace for sure.
yeah, yeah, and but those were older ones. I mean, that
Yes,
2,000 years before Christ, that
yes,
was a warring goddess
mm-hmm.
era,
Yes,
whereas the other goddesses were really more gentle.
yes,
It just goes
yes,
back and forth. We
mm-hmm.
find an old Isis site, and we usually just do it a lot by muscle testing. It's like to meditate with the land. Feel
Mm-hmm.
like when you feel its vibration, then you ask the question,
Mm-hmm.
is this an Isis site? And if your body kind of jolts
Mm-hmm.
and reverberates or expands or reacts in a positive way,
Mm-hmm.
that's a yes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it's
Yeah.
odd. There's this hill that almost looks like it's at its slant so that it reflects Renly Chateau. And we always see it as an Isis site. And there's this grove of trees there that when you get into grove of trees, the earth energy comes up
Mm-hmm.
and you feel very fertile as a man. Let's just put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Or everything
You know,
does down
yeah.
there because it's just resonates growth.
It does. It
whatever
does.
type of growth that may be, it really resonates in that
Yes.
area.
Yes. I would love to practice fertility rights there.
Yeah.
Just have to have the right partner.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. That's a thing. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it is an ancient place. I mean, I've spoken with you even about some of my lineage that came from Alsace-Lorraine. It was a big area for the Templar. A lot of Templar Grand Masters came from that area, but it was also
Yeah.
where my family came from.
Whoa.
And I remember there being stories that talked about how the people within the town, I mean, way, way, way back in the day, long, long time ago, hundreds of years, maybe thousands, I don't know. But, my grandfather was always kind of sketchy on all that. And I had to research it recently, and the time frame eludes me. But the townspeople, there were people within that community way back then that bought land around the chateau, like
Yeah.
and the way it was always put down was it was just to protect it, to protect certain places around it from whatever they thought at the time was going to happen or they didn't want to see happen. So I don't know if some
Yeah.
of these places end up being, like, I don't know what they are today. I don't know if there are certain people within the community whose family kept up with it. Like, I really don't know that much as to what happened during or after that time period,
Well,
but it's fascinating.
yeah. Well, conceptually, the Templars were holding secrets for centuries,
Yeah.
or the families that
Yes.
became Templars. Let's just go
Mhm.
back a little bit.
Yes.
And when the Templars were formed, it was, to me, it was more like a signal that we're ready to take action. We're ready to be out front for the first time,
Yes.
and and to put that message out there. So,
Mhm.
what was the secret they were hiding or holding so secret? And that was that Mary Magdalene was goddess. Jesus was an equal, and all of their symbology is so much about, like, the eight-sided cross, for
Mhm.
example, and their buildings were eight-sided. Well, eight-sided means balance between masculine and feminine creates oneness,
Mhm.
and that was one of their biggest themes.
Mhm.
So, yeah, here was this tower that was an ancient temple of Isis, Magdalene, Church of Mary Magdalene after that.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
it was a precious place.
Something
Even,
was known because Saunier built the Tower of Magdalene, right? And
mhm,
he knew there was something very significant there.
exactly.
And that's the secret that's still resonating right now. Like right now they're talking about the tunnels underneath it and things like that. And that's something my grandfather talked about, you know, goes,
I've
you
seen
need
those.
to go down. And I'm like, mm-hmm. But
I,
now it's all surface.
I've seen and felt those tunnels, and they are quite powerful.
Yes.
They're quite amazing.
Yes.
And Behringer, along with the Freemasons, and also other priests.
Mm-hmm.
Behringer was just kind of like, and this is a priest, in case you don't know, he was a priest that took this old, dilapidated church called Renly Chateau that was built in 680. And
Mm-hmm.
incidentally, it's in the perfect dimensions of, let's see, 420 energy.
Mm-hmm.
424 is basically the, no, 432, excuse me, that's it,
That's the
frequency. And
planetary energy. Yeah.
yeah, it's the earth energy, and it
Yes.
resonates that energy perfectly. And this was all configured and built in 680. Okay, so this is a precious place. Somehow he was the front guy, a damn good looking front guy that had a good looking brother that everybody loved, and he had girlfriends, he had popularity, he could pull in money.
Yes.
And there was other six priests that gave him a lot of the advice and the connections to the Freemasons, also known as the Knights Templar.
Mm.
They rebuilt that church. And one of the really fun parts about it is on January 17th, when you go into the church on a sunny day, there's these refractory rays, like the sun's going through the stained glass windows that were built by the Freemasons.
Mm.
And they start to show these little symbols.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite one, at 12:20, it happens for 20 seconds. A little light goes right across Jesus's statue and goes across his forehead, and when it goes right to his third eye for 20 seconds, it mysteriously turns into an Egyptian ankh. And then
Ah,
it
that's
goes
insane.
back. Now
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
January 17th that happens once for 20 seconds. What does January 17th represent? The first day of the Egyptian calendar.
Funny
And
that.
July 22nd, Mary Magdalene's feast day, that's been happening for a long time before the Roman Catholics declared it her feast day, I think in 1985.
Mm-hmm.
That is midpoint of the Egyptian New Year. So you have, or the Egyptian year.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that balance there. And they were telling us these stories that these two had Egyptian
Mm-hmm.
connections. There's Egyptian stories.
The ancient mystery schools. Jesus
And
was known to have
exactly,
traveled to the ancient mystery schools with his uncle, right, Joseph of Arimathea. But let's not forget,
exactly.
Bart, that even before the church, I mean, you're looking at the fact that this location was a Roman, it was a Roman occupied up on here before all that, and then you get the Merovingians. Like,
It
there's a
was at
lot of
times, but
history there.
yeah, at that time, when at the time of Mary Magdalene, it was possessed by the Visigoths, which were
Visigoths.
Germans,
Yeah.
and the Celts lived around,
Yeah.
and then you had Roman settlements,
Yeah.
and they kind of lived separately, but they, you know,
Yeah.
like if you were a Celt and you were in the Mary Magdalene tribe, which a lot of us assumed that's what became the Cathars.
Hmm.
You took the country roads. You took these little trails, and you didn't want to get on the main road, which were Roman made. And
Right.
so they lived together, but they kind of avoided each other too, probably.
I
They
find it
really,
interesting that the Celts were all the way down there because Yeshua was said
yeah,
to have well, they were said to both have gone up there. When you look, you're getting into the whole thing too with the Scotia, right? Akhenaten's daughter, who ended up he
hmm,
had Celts in his private guard. Like,
wow,
so you
wow,
have so you have these connections that I don't think people really have an understanding of how connected the ancient world really was,
yeah.
you
Well,
know?
that's a nice piece of the puzzle because when you think of the Celts, they had a lot of values that Jesus had. Men and women had more equality to each other
Mhm. Mhm.
than most cultures. So
Mhm.
naturally, that would have been a good culture for Mary Magdalene to gravitate to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
it's all there. There's a lot of information there that connects a lot of the dots, and
Hmm.
I think that I think that people right now are wanting to know. You know, there's
Yeah.
so I watch, and then people who message me say, you should do a show on this or on this. It's showing me where the interest is how it's wavering.
Hmm.
And it's like, you know what? I think people are starting to want to see real answers. They want to talk to people or listen to people who are in the thralls of it, who understand it and who share that information because, you know, if you control the past, you absolutely control the future.
Yeah. I would like to sum it up and say finding security in your own soul
Yes.
and your own heart.
Mm.
That, you may start with trying to learn the history and the story,
Mhm.
but it's also learning internally what a divine feminine vibration feels like for you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
where do we get a divine feminine beginning in our body? We have to look in childhood. And because when we're a little kid, we are in a feminine state that's innocent,
Mm-hmm.
kind. It's in the parasympathetic nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we're kind of an evolved being. And so if we want to return to a goddess or divine feminine, because that's kind of the big quote word these days, we
Mm-hmm.
want to get back and understand what it's like to be in love with ourselves, resolve childhood issues to
Mm-hmm.
where we feel calm inside of ourselves and not reactionary to our own emotions.
Mm-hmm.
When we start to, the deeper we get that, the deeper a higher power kind of has a safe place inside of us.
Yes. Yes. I think that's important. I think
Yeah,
that's really important.
it really
Um,
is. But it's also praying. I mean,
mm-hmm.
even if it's something as
Mm-hmm.
predictable as rosary beads,
Yeah.
it calms your body down. It
Mm-hmm.
takes your body in a calm place, in a
Mm-hmm.
parasympathetic style. It's not that you're making a commitment to be a Catholic. It's more like you're making a commitment to vibrate God or goddess within your body.
I think people need to see visuals. They need to feel visuals. I think it's easier to educate somebody who has, if there's something that they can touch. I've spent 2 decades where I've worked with people on different levels, and I've always said that I had to educate myself a little bit even in their faith because I needed to, you can't work with somebody from one faith to try to say, well, you have to follow this. It doesn't work that way. You have to
That's
you
right.
have to figure out where their mindset is. Where do they draw their strength from? And then you work
Yeah.
with that strength and that faith system, the belief system. And that's what makes it successful is because they have to feel strong inside and you have to work with where they're drawing all of that power from and where they should
Yeah.
focus on, right?
It's really funny when all religions seem to have that part of spirituality in it that can really go deep like that.
Yes.
And then they have these other ones that are very heady and intellectual, uh, and that type of aspect, which
Hmm.
I think you're more apt to get manipulated when you
Hmm.
are solely in a dogmatic state of mind for religion.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's the vulnerability of it. And we see that today.
And I agree with you. It's like the story that you were just saying, when you were a child and this is what your faith taught you. It was the same, in my faith at the time. It was very fear driven. And, it shouldn't be fear driven because I've seen spirits, for example, who have passed on who just stayed back because they were terrified as to what was waiting for them due to conditioning,
Yeah.
and I would communicate with the spirit. I mean, first time I ever encountered one like that was really stuck was I was trying going back at least a couple of decades, and I'm just like, but God loves you. He wouldn't do that. You don't have to worry about that. That's, and it was just like, well, okay, no,
Really?
you're right. Because, you're going by the 10 commandments. And if you cover to thy neighbor's wife, you're going to hell. And Spirit's kind of thinking, I'm going to hang back here, take my chances,
Yeah.
like you have to make realize, no, God is a loving God, like just go and your atonement or whatever your faith teaches you, go to the next level of your journey. Don't hang back because
Yeah.
of the fear of what physical people have told you through conditioning. Just
Yeah.
follow your heart, and that is where I think what I love about again about especially the goddess energy is it's just this really nurturing energy.
And I think when we go into stress, we, I practice a lot of vibrations.
Mm,
And I think the Mother Mary vibration is really strong for me. I have a great
yeah.
affinity to it.
Yes.
I had a personal challenge recently, and I was burning Mother Mary. I was summoning in and
Yeah.
making my body so big that nothing was going to penetrate me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really got down to finally it broke down, uh, that I realized that I just need to create that love like Mother Mary inside my body, and it's my energy.
Yes.
That's the bigger lesson. You know,
Yes.
there are teachers, but we also have to keep in mind that we can learn it ourselves and vibrate it and have our own unique style. And it's not an ego thing,
Hmm.
it's just learning how expanded we can become as an individual. In fact, the more you expand with that, the more you feel complete and whole, and the
Hmm.
ego diminishes because the ego was all about trying to correct our visions that were not whole.
Well, the
You
ego
know?
holds you back, I believe, as well,
Yeah,
from being able to connect to these other energies because it's such a mental thing that
yeah,
drags you down. But it also applies to the old Catholic saying, "The Lord helps those who helps themselves," right?
yeah,
And
exactly.
it just sort of lends to what you're saying. Like you can do this and create this for yourself within your own space. It's always been there to do.
Yeah,
It's just learning.
I'm fiercely independent in my
Yeah.
spirituality,
Yeah.
and so to say that I'm surrendering to God
Hmm.
has always been a difficult concept,
Yes.
but more like I felt in a big affinity that God was in within me,
Hmm.
and that within me can connect to others, and that
Hmm.
felt more like I
Yeah.
could give of myself to others because it was me. And
Hmm.
that maybe it's because I'm a pioneer spirit from Texas, but
Yeah.
that always felt right for me.
Because and it doesn't make you feel vulnerable because I don't pick that up from you. Even though you're willing to surrender to a degree to certain energies, it's not a
Yeah,
vulnerable type of
yeah,
surrender. It's a willing
yeah,
growth thing.
yeah. I'm always suspicious of the concept that, well, I'm going to let a God or an angel or a high spiritual being make my decisions for me,
Hmm.
or a religious figure make my decisions for me,
Hmm.
or a any type of a leader.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
yeah,
I tend to say, I'm just going to let the universe take the wheel for a while. Let's see where it goes, throw
yeah,
caution to the wind and see where it all goes. Because I
yeah,
like the feeling sometimes. I love the feeling of just relinquishing my control a little bit or relinquishing um, that energy just to let it flow.
yeah. I think we have to be open to suggestions all the time and open to things, but ultimately, it's to teach us
Yes.
and
Purging.
opening with that. I,
Yes.
I, I, I don't like the feeling of, well, somebody's going to tell me what to do with my life. You
Yes.
know, should I stay in Texas or should I stay in France? You
Yes.
know, Mother Mary will tell me.
Yes.
No, that's my call.
Yes. Yeah. I like that. I like that. I think it's important. You were given free will, as the story goes. We have free will, we have energy, and we are the ones who are told, "Here's your free will. Make your choices. You have it. It's yours to do with as you please." Some
Yeah.
don't make necessarily great choices and kind of go, "What the heck happened?" You know.
What?
I think I got hit by a Mack truck on the path somewhere. And then there's those who just not only can they manipulate that energy, have an understanding of it, and they can grow with it. And then I think magical things happen when
Yeah.
you get there.
Yeah, when you start to bring these gods and goddesses as consciousness and the vibrations within you,
Mm.
or even through the earth, and I'm a big fan of bringing the energy, the Gaia and the sun into my body, I become a bigger embodiment inside of me.
Hmm.
And I think that's one of the biggest contributions to my success of
Yes.
everything I do. And
Yes.
it doesn't mean that bad things don't happen to me. I got plenty of challenges,
Yes.
but they don't seem to weight me down in a lot of ways other people get weighted down.
Hmm.
Because I just enjoy that power it gives me. It's like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fun to be that strong.
Yes. It is. It is. And it's very encouraging to those. I'm glad that you teach it and you work with people on a personal level as well, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So if somebody wants to, can't go on the tour and needs to work with you remotely, this is something that you can also guide them through.
yeah, yeah. And whether that be
It's part of your practice.
becoming quantum conscious or my practice,
Yeah.
as we both know,
Yes.
because we both feel the same affinity,
Yes.
we serve.
We
We
s-
serve something bigger than ourselves all the
Thank you.
time and
Yes.
help people. How many
Yeah.
how many free sessions do you give, or how many times do you go out and help people and just clear something out of them just like
Mhm.
that, which is always amazing how effective you are
Mhm.
with clearing. But it's I know a bit about Michelle, and it's phenomenal how much caring she has for people all around her, even people she doesn't know,
Thank
by
you.
doing that service. Um, I don't know very many people like that, but the world can use more of them.
Thank you. Yeah, it's 2 decades. I'm tired. I am. I am. I'm tired. But I do love the energy work. And I do believe that if you can take care of the planet, if you can keep her just functioning nicely, because she's abused in so many different ways. But if you can do that, then I think everybody benefits. And I love working with as you know, because we do it as a collective consciousness. And just and
Yeah,
I always how many times do we say, like, just put one good thought in there? I've said this on the Outer Realm many times. If you just take one positive thought every single day and put it out into the collective consciousness and watch and see what happens, it's amazing.
indeed. And just going back to the thing we brought at the first of this show, which is the Christos energy.
Mhm,
This is where I think the Christos is in everybody.
mhm,
This is a Orzoma concept, a wonderful product, but they talk about the golden spot, and it's
mhm,
right in the center of the heart chakra.
mhm,
It's where the sperm and the egg were created when our parents conceptualized us. And when
mhm,
that sperm and egg got together, a big bang happened, and all of these places in the universe and consciousness that we're connected to came together, and kaboom,
mhm,
we started the process of becoming human. But that light that created that spark is still there.
mhm,
And it's called the golden spot. It's about 1,064 cells right in the center of your heart chakra. And when you start meditating with the golden spot, you start to see that it is a huge, bright light, the brightest light you'll experience in your body.
mhm,
Uh, my interesting point of view, the more I read about Sophia, that is the Christos energy that we all have, and we can grow it, fill our body with it up,
mhm,
fill up our body, use it in a variety of ways, shine it onto other people, have a
mhm,
communion with another uh, Christos consciousness with somebody else, or like a tree or something like that, or a
mhm,
power spot. And we start to enhance our own consciousness and connect it to other things.
mhm,
I think people like Jesus were a master of that. That's why they got so big.
mhm. Yeah, the ascended masters. It's just
Yeah,
that tap in. It's
my light.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, my light can be your light, and vice versa.
Hmm. So tell us about the show. Who do you have coming on tomorrow?
Tomorrow night we have Penny Loftus, who is a sound activation specialist.
Ooh.
Oh, she's an alien. It's funny. She came in on 2012, and some being came into her and started teaching her about sound activations.
Wow.
She sees it very differently than your typical sound activators.
Wow.
She's doing the 5 vibrations of the heart and
Wow.
how those work, how they vibrate,
Hmm.
and how to use them. It's a how-to type of night. She has a beautiful English accent.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So, becoming quantum conscious every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And always a lesson to be learned and phenomenal guests. And for the rest of us, namely me right now, tomorrow night on the Outer Realm, we welcome back Dr. Christopher Macklin, and he's going to be talking about the Stargate expose and AI military industrial complex. So that's going to be a bit of a heavy night. And Thursday night, it's open mic, open discussion. You guys know the drill, but I can tell you we've got a whole list of new interesting stuff. So it's going to be great. If you want to participate, get into one of our chat rooms. We'll have a whole lot of fun. So
Mm.
big thank you to my dear friend and colleague Bart Sharp, all the way from the south of France. I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, it's my
And
pleasure.
always fun when you come
It
on.
is. It is.
And we have been broadcasting here on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from New Orleans. I will see you guys tomorrow night. And Bart, my goodness, you're in the middle of a tour. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
best of luck on to that. And I know we'll
Oh,
be chit-chatting.
it's a party every day on a tour.
Yes,
We spent the day with fairies and Venus spirits today. So
I love it. So
uh,
people should contact you, and if they
well,
want to
what a
go,
wild way to have an adventure.
yeah, go for
Oh
an
yes, oh
adventure.
yes. Mary Magdalene France tours, or just Google Bart Sharp.
Yeah. But- Well, the Mary
Yeah,
Magdalene France or tours in France. What's your web?
yeah.
What's your page? What's your page?
Mary Magdalene France Tours.com.
Okay, and that was
Yeah,
scrolling across the banners, and you
yeah,
have a
yeah,
Facebook page as well that they
yeah.
can find.
Yeah. Just uh, Sacred Sites of Mary Magdalene and France Tours, and that one's a very interactive site. There's lots of Magdalene stuff beyond my work, but
Yeah.
I'm the guy who manages it and has created it years ago, and it's just fun to do.
So check it all out, you guys, and thank you all for tuning in. We shall see you all tomorrow evening.
Bye
Good
bye,
night.
everybody.